So welcome to our after action, session, working session. So just want to welcome everyone. Again, you all know me, Greg Mitchell. So this is kind of we did this in PROG. So this is consistent with the PROG model that we've referenced over the last couple of days. But remember last year we did at the day after the ministerial PROG, we had the after action brunch in Prague. It was pretty much like an open brainstorming session where people shared their reflections and any ideas they had. So that's kind of the idea here. Chris will give some brief opening remarks. We'll hear from Nazira since she missed yesterday. And then after that, we'll hear from the co-sponsors. And then like our corporate guests who are here. And then we can kind of get into strategy. Kind of, like I'd like to share like our vision for like moving forward from here, and a strategy that we can continue to develop, and evolve as we go like along this journey over the next 15 or 16 months, while Ambassador Rayhoff is chair of the Alliance, and then beyond. But really, right now, focused on through the end of 2025. So does that sound good with everybody? And we'll have a coffee break in between whenever we get to 10:30. Yeah. Yeah, people can. There you go. Whatever you want. Yeah, this is informal, casual. So again, whenever you feel like you need to refresh up, feel free. But I'm just gonna hand it over to Chris Stewart first.
Don't be deceived by the tie, or the ties you see. I just want to riff for a second on that phrase, after action. Because Patrice, we were talking about how, these things, I learn a lot, we learn a lot from things, but when you're doing a big meeting, it's monologues, right? What we're trying to do here is we have some dialogue. That's like basically the major thing this is about, which is why it's informal. It's like you can interrupt somebody else if you want, say, wait, stick your hand up or whatever. I guess you might have to moderate that from time to time, but you can handle that. So that's really what we're going for. Like this, so we could call this is the action, right? This is like, we're like, we want to focus on things that are actionable. This is not, it's important. We appreciate being evidence driven. So you do need to kind of know what's going on. There's a lot of stuff you need to know. And it's like, if you have adolescent kids or kids in college, I see all these college, I used to teach college, so I can say critical things to college students. I used to work with them for 20 years. But, they have a lot of passion, but they don't know much. So they're like a lot of the campus protests and so on that you've seen in the last year. It's like, yes, it's a lot of heat, but not a lot of light there. And, why don't you just study a little bit more? Crack a book, learn about these things that you're protesting about. So, that's them. We're not like that, right? So we're not even remotely like that. But so it's important to be informed, and that's what I go on the road to do. Because I don't just learn things sitting in Nassau waiting for the phone to ring and trolling the internet. That's not how you learn things. You learn things from talking to people. And that's, for me, always the things when people say, oh, how was the meeting? I think of the conversations that I had. That's the first thing I think of. And so that's what we want to have here. And, we're all doers. We're all serious. So, that we want to have a serious conversation and we want to be candid, and with one another. So that's the tone we're going for. You don't have to give up after action, but this is also where we're at. One maybe more of that, but sometimes when I'm joking, I'll say, well, yeah, we got together for a post-mortem on the meeting, like after the meeting was over. But it's not really that either, it's sort of more planning. It's like, okay, now what? Now what do we do? Because we're all doers, right? I need something actionable, what is the action, and we want to know what we're all doing, you know, and because it's all leading to this, it's all driven by the same vision of the world, you know, that we're trying to create. So that's it.
Thank you. Yeah, so yeah, planning sessions, probably better. But the idea would be to develop like a working like strategy and maybe a plan. Like I said, that we can update, and each time we get together at one of these events, we can kind of share the latest evolution of the plan. That's what we'll continue to work on the day after each one of the big meetings. Is continue to develop a plan. So it's just an ongoing planning process, basically. So that, yeah, it never stops. It just keeps building, single builders. So, by a definite process. So that's what we're talking about. But first, I want to hand it over to Suzanne and/or Charmaine to introduce Nazira, just so that we can hear from Nazira. She made it here. We're all grateful that you made it. Sorry you went through so much trouble to get here, but we're happy you got here. So we definitely want to hear from you. So I'm going to mark over.
So good morning, everyone. I'm really happy that Nazira made it out from Syria through Iraq with great difficulty, and we're very happy to have you here, to have your voice as an important voice from the field. So Nazira Gouria she's currently the Foreign Minister of the Syriac Union Party in Syria and has had several government positions in the autonomous administration of northeast Syria, which is about 30% of the landmass in Syria. So it's a very important area. She's currently the co-chair of the Jazeera region in northeast Syria, which is the largest and most diverse region in northeast Syria. She was part of the early founding of the autonomous administration, which is a multi-ethnic, multi-religious government with half of the leaders being women. Very, very impressive for the Middle East. In January 2014, when ISIS took over the city of Raqqa, eventually declaring it the capital of the caliphate, with over 30,000 foreign fighters joining the local community of this radical Islamic group of ISIS. They targeted, apart from all of the people that they were under them in the caliphate, but also a number of the Christians in the Syrian Kabul Valley, which is an important region in northeast Syria. And there they held 250 of them, killing several and kidnapping them. The area would eventually become liberated by the Syrian forces, which were part of the coalition forces, which America and other countries helped lead. It was the only area in the region that the coalition forces could join together with in order to fight the caliphate. They could not join with Turkey, for example. And they were able to liberate this whole area from ISIS. And they've set up this democracy with the best religious freedom conditions while fighting the Islamic State. So they did it at the same time. In 2018 and 19, Turkey also has attacked this region, causing major instability. And due to this, even the American government has recognized this has caused for a rise in ISIS fighters in the region, which now the autonomous administration is having to deal with, as well as the attacks on them by Turkey. So let me ask you the first question. I understand that religious minorities are actually overrepresented in the government positions, with half of the leaders being women. How does that work?
برخصافلو دودي دو كولي زبنو تقدرونو محكيونو إيه تحرستو أو إيه تربيثو إحنا قادرين تجربة قادرين سامينا لاقابينا بمدرحو معرض سوريا بقاوة سوريا.
Good morning and thank you very much for giving me this possibility to talk to you here and to explain to you how we were able to set up this project among the people of Northeast Syria.
طبعا خد ما حكينا كريو غلبي على المدد احنا عايشينها للطامو مقروبو عبور الداعش تحديات او عسكوت وغلبي اللي احنا عايشينها للطامو اذا ما حكينا نكو بعد يومي غلبي وساعة غلبي تقدرينا ما حكينا.
So Charmaine already explained from what background we are coming, the ongoing persecution, invasion of Daesh. So it will take us days to talk about what really happened, but the point is now where are we now?
بس كيف يقولوا محتونوا بهروا على المدد احنا قادرين عمومي دانو كولي عسكوتات اللي احنا عايشينها تكتوا غلبي عتمو كيبي محكيونو على نقطة بهرو طامو دبديلة دويو ودعيشو احنا تكيبا معونينا لسندينا لدويو بهرو لمدى الحوصعي كولي.
But I can talk about the light which were lightening from the dark we were living in and how this light was giving the people in the region hope for the future. And I can talk about this light, how it can be a model for not only our region but the whole Middle East.
بوزا بنو ديبيع دوي بروبو بين دعم تكتني طامو ودوي حروبو اللي دوكسايو احنا قادرين خدعامي لتمينا عم حدودي برنيوحا بفكرحا محتينا ودو سجديدا او دمينا ونمو سديدا قدرينا بهالخينا اعلي دوي مثلو وتقدرينا محتينا اي بومت كتوا نقوصو الينا دا احنا تابعين السمينا وقومت قاوة سوريا بتربينا احق الدعامي قاونوي بقاوة سوريا.
So in the time when they were trying to get us as a people against each other, we did the opposite. We sit down together and we were talking with each other how we can unite and how we can get strong together, empower ourselves, and we set up a social constitution. And we were also talking about what was missing the last in the past, what we did not have, what we can do better, and how we can fill in the gaps.
هوخا احنا عام الطامو كرد عرب سريوي شيحوي يزيدوي عام كولي اثنيكي كولي قاليلوثو كتني غلبي بنيونو كلنا عم حدودي قادرين يترينا كفينا كونترا ديدا ما حتى مثابت لمقاوي احق الدعامي سياسي اثني ديني احق الدنيشة قادرين طامد ميدينا دكتو دنيشة قادرين نثبتينا روحينا دونينا ممثلون بقاوي تقدروا نثاثي الحمشي بامو طامو احنا كتلي نقطة غلبة مهمة تكبعينا دقيقينا لا احنا لفايشينا بحشوينا خدينا وبس بدينا غلبة مهمة لجارينا لكن امي هم احنا دمثبتينا خدعامو يعني التمثيل السياسي وهانو غلبة مهم إلينا لأن أوريجي دائما مويدو إلى الإثنيك دينو لمدو إلى العام.
So after we were able to set up this social contract, which is our constitution, we as Arab, Kurds and Syriacs from ethnic background, but also as Christians, as Muslims, as Yazidi and Cherkess and all other people living there like Armenians, we were able to split also among each other different responsibilities. We made sure that we have representation for all of us, and we focused also on the women's rights so that we can have an inclusive administration which is working on the base of respecting each other and the recognition of each other. So we think, and this is very important for me to mention this, if you want to have religious freedom, it starts to have recognition of others' background, others' ethnicity. And if you recognize this, if the Arab and the Kurds can see there is a Syriac people or Yazidi community, and they don't see us only like sects or a religious minority, when we start to think like respecting each other and recognize each other as a people, so that's the start how you can build on politically to really develop all these other values like cultural rights, language rights, and everything which is coming like religious freedom. And this is how also the whole administration is structured in the whole northeast Syria.
So, of course, the question we're all dying to know, when you set up this inclusive government, how did it help prevent radicalization?
طبعا هكا كيما محتينا نقطة حدود الشو اللي تقوم بريثو كولا هي ولو تقبيلو الحدود دايما تكميبا طرف هي دو الشيطان على الطرف حرينو ودايما هي المويد من دمامث الطرف حرينو قاود روحي وخازي السيستمات كتوني مركب كمان هم صعيو على أساسا ويني على أساس قابوها عاموها لشونوها وعام حرينو كولا يهون فاشير بقاود.
So basically the lesson learned from the past was that there was always dictatorship, there was a minority ruling on a majority, but this is what we avoided to do. So we came up to sit together and to focus on how we can really respect and recognize each other's background, ethnic and religious background. This was for us the major point. And it starts all with the recognition and to empower each other.
موقع احنا قاعدين ندبروا نثويتات وميهم قابلنا تقبلوا الحدوديو ليت فرشونو بين طايو وشحويو ليت فرشونو بين عامي ليت فرشونو بين قاللتو او مليونو رابو ايلو احقت كرزندون بشويوثو بين دعامي كوليه نوشد لتسويم هنو حصورو على نو شحرينو وهوخا كي بيدو عامي كولي دون عايش ديمقراط بحاية صحة وعامل كل الميديا حقتك كونو يبدو يشلو وشينو ميدوكثو موخا احنا كلنا على نقطة في غلبة لجن قدرين عامات قدري ما قبل حدوده.
So it started of course with the top, the way we were thinking as leaders, and then it comes down to every region, and in every region we have own governments. Let's say the region has its own president and co-president, but then we go down to the municipalities and all the way down to even in those schools we try to implement this change of mentality. You think different, and this is how you can create it from the bottom to the top, from the top to the bottom, and this makes the difference. And this is how we, of course, there are issues. We are struggling with some. Let's say people they are not used. For example, I can give just an example. In the Middle East, if you have a problem with another family, it's like if families they solve each other the problem. They go to a religious leader, and he has to deal with that. They are not used to go like legal way to the court, and this is now what the people have to learn. That there is a legal courts. That you have to go other structure, and this is something still we have to work on, but. We have the structure, and that's the most important.
It's building democracies through institutions from the ground up, not just expecting people to vote and have a one-off and continue believing in the values. So we've done a lot of projects together to help with some of the threats that we face, especially with outside forces. What do you think are the main threats that Northeast Syria faces right now today?
يا أكيد كيتو إحنا تهديد كيتو بخسرة من تركيا وبغلبة الحوي بخسرة ورانك طبعا الحجة هي تأتيو إنه كيت مع هبون بدك ساي وتكبروا محر ويتر ميثاثي محر حزينة يتر ميثاثي حزيولا خطر على روحها موقع حدوما ما تهديدات كيتو هي والحوي تركيا بالأخص على تكوثي دمينات كتنة مهم تكوثي ضماي بكهرباء دمك هنالي كيت نقطة حيتو اللي هي أديما داعش طعمو هيش إيه أوكي قادرين على داعش إنه بس هيش يحاضنا أو دمينا هنيت كيتو لو غلطوا عامو هيش كيتو داعش كنطروا فرصة نجت بثقنا قحريتو طبعا كيتو هنيد من أقربات إيران نشطاموني تسان كوي تهديد لا تكوثي دم طعمو.
So actually the region is facing a big threat. It's a continued attack coming from Turkey. And the last attacks were enormous. They destroyed the whole infrastructure. It's really something we built years on. We put a lot of funding on. But this is also harming the people. And this makes the people also thinking twice how much they can still struggle to stay and live there. And of course, we never forget, like Daesh, we think it's over, but no, it's not over. They're still having sleeper cells. And we know if there is, if they get the opportunity, they will just wake up and they will do their attacks. And on the other hand, you know, this northeast Syria is having two borders, like on one side it's Turkey, the other side it's Iran, and also Iraq, so three borders. So we also have this threat from Iran coming, the Hezbollah, and actually this is something not only from outside, having almost not only the shellings, but the drone attacks also coming, and we had actually some colleagues who were also having this were attacked by a drone in their car and they died. So it's something, it wastes our time that we have to deal with that. We could focus on better, but now we still have these threats and it's serious.
موقع احنا كمزينة طبعا احنا كوبينا توديو في الكواليسون هي معاذر لي وقيسو او نقوة سوريا ديمقراطية كيوطا متقادري مينا نو عم داعش قادر خالص من داعش إلو كيت نقطة زي احنا غالب المهم يولا جانينا اليوم الكواليسون تقدر تفويش طامو هي سويم توازن او بلاص بيدوكثو تقدر تحمي بيدوكثو وهيش لأن احنا قاموسينا كيتغلب نقربوا مقابل ديما هربونوثو تكتيو طامو طبعا يدوكثو طامو احنا كنا حاربين ايما هربونوثو داعش مقابل دبريثو هولا موخا غلبوا ميهيميو تفويش طامو ميتحمي وتفويش شاليو لجن دعم تقدري تعيشي حياتي وتقدري ما تملي تحرساتي او من اي بروجي بذي طبعا كبون التوديوثو غلبة الهوخة كونفرانسي لشوتوس بمشاتسني وميدانو دايم تكلوزم دوي نوشي تقدر ما حد فوكس علي دكتو على شو اللي تكيت ودوي رنية غلبة لجن بسنودة دكتو تقدرينا احنا دوي شريونو بمدى الحمصايو واحنا كفزينا قعدوا قربة كتير بمدى الحمصايو هيش زويد انه كوبالي غلبة الشريون كوبالي غلبة رنية مقدر احنا تقولينا عليه توديوثو غلبة.
And finally, she says that we are really grateful for the US forces, the coalition forces. They helped us that we were able to create this model and to be what we are today. But in order to be able to continue with this nice and bright future, we need, of course, the US troops and the international coalition to continue to support us, to stay there, and to protect the region, because the fight against extremism is not over. As we just mentioned, it's still risk, and still we have a lot of sleeper cells in different external countries which are really a threat. And so yeah, this is very important for us that we have been here, that we were able to talk to you, to deliver this message. So, and we really have to think about what needs to be done so we can really focus on changing the mentality of the Middle East and bringing really a bright future to the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nazira. It's a great honor to have someone who is from the government of Northeast Syria, an area that really is holding the regional security in your hands. Because if you fall, we know what's going to happen. Turkey and Iran and Russia will be able to take over. They will come through this area and it will not only affect all the people in Syria, but also they will tie up with other terrorist groups like Hezbollah and be able to destroy Israel and the general instability. So it's very important. I would encourage everyone to speak to her. It's not often we are able to get a voice from this area that's lived through these experiences, being able to succeed and hold such a pivotal, strategic, geopolitical role in the Middle East. Thank you.
It's definitely a model. You know, it's a model for, obviously, it's a good citizenship and governance model on how to build, you know, the kind of government It's also top down and bottom up. That's the whole thing. It's the whole package. And so really, like, how do we replicate that around the world? You know, that's kind of, that's what we need to do. So I wanted like, we can just start opening up, but I just want to frame the discussion, or just put some framing from our concept that we put together for this event, and for the series of events that we're going to do. Because again, the goal is to come up with regional strategies so we can move in the direction of Northeast Syria, so that we can start implementing or replicating that model, you know, all around the world. But our thinking and putting together this strategy, or this series of events, you know, you have Templeton Religion Trust, Earth Secretariat, and Leather Neighbor Community, like all coming together and thinking this through. But so I'm gonna kind of read from the concept, and then we can open it up and hear from the co-sponsors first. But we can go around the room and hear from everybody. But our thinking was that we want to see and socialize like these kinds of conversations that we're having right now, and that we had yesterday. But not only conversations, but collaborations among a new generation of leaders, like Nazira and her fellow leaders in Northeast Syria, to include donors too. So, you know, practitioners, donors, you know, even government leaders. As you're building social cohesion on the ground in your country, through inclusion and cooperative engagement across our deepest differences. And the whole idea of getting together at these planning sessions the day after is to gather, process what we heard, like at our event yesterday. And we're going to do this at each event, like I said. So process what we heard at the event and consider how best to shape or evolve different regional strategies. You know, each time we gather, we should do that. So what we want to do is just kind of start developing these regional strategies so that we can kind of go over them each time we gather and see what we have to do to further the development and evolution of these regional strategies. And each time we gather at these meetings like this, you know, we're going to sponsor these events. The idea is that the events will be sponsored and organized by common partners and donors, and focused on common themes, like the themes we had yesterday. You know, how freedom of religion or belief for everyone, you know, can prevent misuse of religion, but also build social cohesion through inclusion, build resilience, you know, and build good citizenship and governance like you have in Northeast Syria. But we want to deepen a collaborative model. That's the whole idea. That's the problem models of collaborative models. When we're bringing together, like Suzanne was here last year, Lisa Johnson, she was not here today, but she was here last year. The idea is that Patrice was there last year. You know, we had the people who were here in Prague or come back from Berlin. And the idea is that we're going to keep doing these kinds of events and inviting everyone to continue to move along with us on this journey, to continue developing a collaborative model and bringing majority world together with Western world, majority and non-majority, and then bring global and local donors and partners together on a regular basis. That's what we're developing. And each time we gather, again, share the latest developments impacting our work, the work that we're all doing, and then adjust our regional strategies as needed. That's the idea. And so obviously we want to create more strategic synergies in doing this, greater thought leadership and original research, and then an increased global/local culture of philanthropy around this kind of work. So I just wanted to frame it with that, but then I just want to open it up and recognize our co-sponsors.
But if I may, before we get off your comments, Nazira, I wonder if I could ask one question, and then we'll carry it. And that's really good framing. Charmaine asked about how it works in what you put together in Northeast Syria. My question is more about what motivates it. And so my question is, in never having experienced anything like what you've experienced before myself, is it, I imagine it's a number of things that motivate it among the people participating in it. Is to what extent is it simply just a human connection between people. You know, sort of you reach a point of where you've been through something together, and that you find some connection with other people as humans. To what extent are people feeling, you know, because it is multi-religious, so to what extent is it, in some cases, perhaps, obviously there's no single answer that's true for every individual, but are there leaders who see inclusion and working with others and loving others flowing from their own religious beliefs? In other words, the way their view of the world motivates it. So those are two different kinds of motivations, and they're both important. But I'm just wondering if there's what the combination of motives are. What are and again, there are a lot of different people, and people have different motivations for the same end. But I'm just curious how, I'm asking a question about what motivates the effort to do what you've done, if that makes sense.
تودي لو شو وليدة لأن اليوم كغلبة وشو وليدة مهميو احنا عامل كتنا طامو عاملتنا دا اليوم اسم الهاولن حق الفاي اشنك عايشين عم حدودة عامل شو شوية دي دكثو شابع علينا غلبة طول عامة شابع علينا من حكومة شطموث ديشي ويلا لو بنولن أحق قيدا لو خد سياسي لو خد دينو يعني مثلو احنا طامو خدم شي حوي وريجي موبايل انه هاتم شي حوي كم خود صالتو إلو لو بنولن أحق قيدا مدولن خد ملف تقدر تقومر ايبا وميدت كيت طامو احنا قادرين تسمينا لي احنا ابيعنا احدو يوثو عم حدود تقدرين نفقينا مش ولو كتنا بقاوي لأن ميبعوا دوي وشولو بينو ثنا دوي وقرو بين دعامي إلو احنا ابيعنا هوينا دوكو موحا تقدرين كولينا مقابل ده شو ولد كيت قدرينا نفقينا ميعسكو احنا عايشينا لا علوخا احنا ابيعينا دوينا حا كولينا مقابل دم دونالي كوليه احنا ميت الحوزينا لحيرثو ددينا يو كروز دويو حيرثو دعاميو لان لي بدوي نوشت بعويش يعني احنا بين مثويك لتمر من هي قانون دحريرثو يحيرثو دو انسان خلصوا قاموا دو حيرثو كت يوم قابل هو كروز محاد عويش لو أمي أونت كبعلي لازم محتلات أو فرضلي على ود مقابل موقع إحنا خدعامي أبعينا دوينا سمينا مادة حافظة متقدرين عايشينا بصحة وديمقراطية.
First of all, the people living there, they are not people coming from outside. We are the indigenous people. We living there thousands of years, and we went through many things together. And many regimes came, they oppressed us, they didn't give us our rights. Like for Christians, we were only recognized as a Christian people. They say you have rights to go and pray, but we really didn't have this opportunity to learn our own language or to go to school and learning Aramaic, the language of Jesus. And for example, the Kurds, they were never recognized, for example, having even a status as a people. They didn't have even legal documents. So having all this, let's say, common background, and then looking into what and where are we now and today, we came up that we only can be strong and powerful if we are united. So if we are Arab, Kurd, Syriac, Armenian, Yazidi, Cherkess, like all together we are stronger. If we all it's like with the hand. So what we did is actually the unity, to unite it. And this is also how we fought Daesh, ISIS. When we went to the front lines, Arab, Christians, Kurds, we fought and died together on the front lines. We fought them together, so no one can claim they did more than the other, and this was never the point. And this is something, it comes from what you are going through, the experience you have, and you know the real reality on the ground. And if you really want a solution, and one for us, we always heard about human rights worldwide, internationally, and what we said to ourselves, it starts first to really give and implement human rights, and then we can go and take it from there. And this is the most important. Then we can give the religious freedom and whatever comes. But as people, as a human being, what are we? What do we want? And even what our religions, what they tell us, what we should do.
If I can ask another question, because we had a lot of conversations about this. You had certain leaders in 2012 when you designed the social contract, and their thoughts and things that they were motivated by had a big impact on the Kurdish, Christian, Arab, Yazidi communities that helped you design that social contract. Can you talk about those motivations? Some leaders who helped design the thinking and motivations behind Hiroshima, and others that helped you design the motivations on how you ended up, like for example, 40% women. What are those motivations?
I mean, those people, the leaders
That helped you
Was
design?
habe ich implementiert, um diese Social Contract zu machen, um diesen Vertrag zu machen in 2012.
يا أدو إحنا أو عم الطامو يعني مكرخوا على الشريون ودك لازم يسم يعني لازم نخلق سيستم ديمقراط إحنا فينا لا إمثل ديمقراطيته مقدر أحق دعم كل المقدر من تحتي منو مسانو موخا أعم الطامو يعني حسب دوميدة دعايشيلي حسب دوميدة شابة عليه موخا قادري عم حدود تسيمو ميدان كيت شكل ما شكلات يعني كريخ عن إيدر بود كلوزم إحنا أحق دعمي طامو دمي تحتي طامو لا تومي دي غلبة في شيطو يا ميدة تسيم يومي غلبة للي غلبة قدير ميسم كنشية يعني هلت إحنا قادرين بموطينا لأن إحنا كدعينا بقاوي دوزبنا وكيت غلبة بدوني ختمينا بو تاريخ كتنة بينو ثينا يعني بين دعم الهاوي شوولة بينو ثينا بس إحنا دعينا شبعينا الشوولة نتكتوين بينو ثينا تقدرين بموطينا الشريونو دوي بينو ثينا كونترات تقدرين عايشين عم حدودي لجن دلوثي علينا جنسايد لقى حريتو إن كان علينا إحنا خدعان وسوريا إن كان على الكرد إن كان على الغير موخا إحنا قادرين بشكل ما شكلات الشخص بكتوين طامو بفكر قوي وبفكر من راس قادري محتي وميدانه كنت يقنونو لا تومي دفشيتو بس قادرين موطينا للكونتراكا يعني له عقد اجتماعيانو بس كنت يقنونو قامرين ناجحين إذا قادرين موطينا لا دوئيدو.
So when we talk about the motivation the people who had on the table when they were trying to create the social contract, of course, in the Middle East we were always we were aware of what is going on when it started in 2011, the Arab Spring, and when it came to Iraq, and we knew it's coming there, and we can say that all our people, like the Kurdish people and also the Syriac Christians. From before that, there was some kind of preparation within the own people, within the own community. And it's very important that you can come as a group and not only as a person. And this is what makes also the difference. When you can prepare the own community, the own people, if it's an organization, if it's a political party. So currently she's representing the Syriac political party as a foreign affairs. And this kind of representations, they make this difference to really provide this democratic structure, because it has to come from this democratic ground, from the own community, and this is, and then you assign those people who really can come to the table and create this. And it was, I think, the biggest work we had to do, and this helped us also. This first social contract to really don't lose and to fall again. And it's like since 2000, how long? Since 2014 now, this is the base of this whole process. And if we don't do it right from the beginning, But from that very beginning, before that, preparing the people and all those behind. For example, I can just give a very important example here. When all this started in the Middle East, I was at that time lobbying in DC and in Brussels and everywhere, which conference I went, we always had patriarchs talking about the people. But they can't, because they only can talk about their church, they don't represent the political needs, the cultural needs. Even though they were having like Christian rights, religious rights, we didn't have them fully, and never we had them. But it was always symbolic, because when the people are not free under Assad or Saddam or whoever, or in Turkey, Erdogan, how is the church free? We are all oppressed, our churches, our people, our institutions. So this is why it's important, as you just said, the civil society, the people who can organize themselves to be independent from all these outside standing stakeholders or whoever, so that we can talk freely. And it's not the church representing the people. Who is the church? The people are the church. The people are the religion. And when they are free, then the church can be free. And this is why I'm happy that when I look back the last years, I see only political representatives able to come and talk and really give the point what's about. It's not about just talking because I have a title, I'm a patriarch or I'm a bishop. I'm not free because there's somebody behind me, pushes me, pressures me, and that's the reality. This is something we really have to consider also for the future, when we do more programs for the region, to consider to have the right organization. And this is what Charmaine said, we did a lot of projects, but we did it with the right groups, with the right aid organizations. So, yeah.
Thank you. I don't know if it answered your question, but we can always follow up later.
Thank you. It's fascinating. I mean, it's an amazing story that we need to promote. And going back to what she was saying, that I believe it is civil society's responsibility to take the lead in promoting this model, and then kind of holding the top down, holding their feet to the fire, and bringing them along with us. I mean, that goes back to the Bob cycle. Chris's dad, when I asked him, this was back in 2012, I asked him what we as civil society could do, to get the U.S. government to do more, in this direction. And he basically said, don't wait for me to say it. He said, we're civil society, it's our responsibility. And he said it is our responsibility to hold their feet to the fire. And when the governments want to work with us, that's great, but we don't wait for them and we don't rely on them. It's our responsibility, we take the lead, we do what we do. So that, I like that. I also like what she said about it's the people, like churches are made up of the people, countries are made up of the people, and governments should be. The original idea of government in America was that we the people, it should be government of, by, and for the people. And really the people should have no separate, the government should have no separate existence from the people. And the people are in some sense the government. And that's how it should be. And that's why the model what we're modeling is cooperative engagement and working with governments and offering to help governments. And so that's the whole approach. So I love this model. And so I'm going to use that to kind of springboard into, throwing it over to Suzanne. Because my vision is we should set up, each region's different, each region has its own, and there's even sub-regions within regions that have that shared culture, shared experiences, and that's what binds them together. So in thinking of the Middle East and North Africa, there's even sub-regions within that big, MENA region big, and there's different sub-regions within that. But the idea is, could we set up regional centers? And I know you've been talking about some kind of regional platform. For where let's say if you have this regional center, there would be a regional secretariat or a staff. The secretariat is just really a staff that's there to do the work that's needed to promote this model, and promote other, best practice programs like Hardwired, global, we heard about, like these multi-faith religious freedom roundtables, like cross-cultural religious literacy programs that we've heard about. But you have a regional center with the staff, and you're promoting all these best practice programs in this model. And we're setting up roundtables in all the countries of the region, and having more of these conversations like this, led by the local, and each regional center will be staffed by local, it's locally owned, locally run, customized for that local context. That's the vision I have for how we can start, making more people aware of this. But then we also have to, and then you can develop a strategy for each region. With leaders from that strategy, or leaders from that region speaking in and developing a strategy for their own region. But then we have to build these donor collaboratives. And there might be a mix of global donors like Mercury One, partnered with local donors in the region, and maybe regional and local donors, but a partnership of global, regional, and local donors to fund the execution of the regional strategies that we develop. That's the model I'm looking at. That's the vision I have. But I want to throw it over to Suzanne, as one of the co-sponsors who was here in Prague, or who was in Prague, now you're here in Berlin. I know you're thinking with this regional platform, but I'd love to hear what you think, and then we can open it up to other co-sponsors also.
Thank you, Greg. I'm really excited to be here after being in Prague, and I realized throughout the whole entire day yesterday, there is a lot of action items that we had in Prague that I was thrilled to see take into effect and actually in place, and that's forward movement. That's phenomenal. So I want to give you all accolades on that. That's a lot of work you guys have put in since Prague and being here. The one thing that I've realized is it doesn't matter if we're coming from academia, it doesn't matter if we're coming from civil society, it doesn't matter if we're coming from government or religious leaders. There's one commonality, and that's the people. And I've realized that throughout the day yesterday, that if there's not collaboration and cross-pollination, which Charmaine so beautifully just put to me, that we are not focusing on the most important thing here, and that is the human being and the people. So that's number one. Looking at some of the things that we went through, and this is just speaking on my panel, I'm realizing that you have to work in several areas. You are not going to change a society unless you start with the next generation. And I'm not talking about the young adults, I'm talking about the children. If we do not have tolerance and appreciation for other people as human beings, their religion becomes separate. And that's really where a lot of the extremism comes in. So that was something that was very important. And then looking at some of the local governments in the communities that Mercury One and the Nazarene Fund has specifically worked in, what I've realized is that the governments need to be representative of all of the people, not just one group of people. I was just telling some stories when we originally went to Erbil, and we started working in 2015 and 2016 with the Christians and the persecution. I did a tour with Archbishop Warda, and we looked at what they had done to assist Christians to get out of refugee camps and put them into homes, and they wanted us to help them replicate this model. And we were happy to do that, but when I did the tour, I saw a ditch in between a Muslim neighborhood of beautiful homes and a neighborhood that they had put Christians and families in beautiful, massive homes. And there was a ditch in the middle with a UN tent, several. And on the side of the tent, it said, "No help, no aid." And it was these. And I asked Archbishop Warda and his team who was helping them, and who are they, and why are they in a ditch? And your people are here in palatial homes, and the Muslims are over there in palatial homes. What's going on there? So we put that in as part of our funding. We're not just gonna go fund and support Christians. If you're not helping your neighbors, and you're not helping all the people within your community, then you are not doing a service to humanity. So that was part of our caveat. We would give no funding to move people out of refugee camps unless they focused on also assisting the Yazidis in their communities. So I think that's important as well. We tend to be in our own mindset of our religion, and that's natural, because that's our belief system. But at the same point in time, if we're not in the mindset of every other religion, then we're really doing a disservice to humanity. So action items taking away, I'm really excited to see what everyone here comes up with from the conference, because I've seen what you guys did from Prague, and you guys have implemented them. And I just want to thank y'all for allowing us to be a part of it.
Thank you. No, I love that. Thank you, Suzanne. Is there still interest on your end for setting up something? I know that Salah Ali and Jeremy, they set up, or they launched something, or they announced the launch of something, but is there still interest in supporting the development of a true regional platform that could promote this kind of this model and all of the kind of work, the collaborative work that we're talking about, and the model that you just laid out as well?
Yeah, I'm part of what we've done is rescue, restore, and rebuild.
Yeah.
We have a lot of work to do in the rebuild process, and this is an implementable model throughout different parts of the world. But you've got to bring the local people together,
Exactly.
no matter where it is. But
Local partners are definitely around. Do you think that's a workable model to do regional or sub-regional platforms like that?
I do, and it's got to start local with the
Yeah.
communities there, but it's got to be, just like they said, all the different religions, all the different ethnicities, everybody that you have has to be a part of it, or they don't feel like they're represented,
Right.
and that's what needs to be happening.
See, we need to promote that model. One of the things we're talking about is, I don't know, where's Adam? See, we've got Jessica. We have to start telling the story, because this is a model that everybody in the world needs to know about. Truly, so thank you for sharing the story. Thank you for your entire panel. Any other, Lauren?
I just wanted to add, I'm so sorry I missed the very beginning, but Rima and my friend Bassam Assad were involved with the official Syrian opposition from the very beginning, and they were the foreign affairs people. They went around meeting with, Britain, Germany, France's foreign ministers, and then they worked on this model. But there are other models in the region. The official opposition has gone to an Islamist model where they believe the government should be entwined with Islam, and that no other religions really should have any substantial rights, if any. I mean, it's just kind of ISIS with a slightly different approach. And the Assad regime is still heavily invested in being totalitarian, and these are sort of two of the other models in the region. So I think that what's going to need to happen is to think in terms of a educational program for the region from the top to the bottom, or maybe it should be from the bottom to the top, because in the autonomous administration, they really effectively have a roundtable every single day of the week, but they're dealing with these people who really want hegemony and total control. So, and this is of course true all over the Middle East, but it's a brilliant model, and it has worked, and they came up with it on their own. It wasn't because it was stuck down their throat. No Americans went over and said, this is what you have to do. So I think if we can convince people that it's really indigenous and really functional and works for everybody, that we will be well placed. I mean, we're doing a little bit of it in Iraq. I mean, well, actually quite a lot in Iraq, but we've got to go from the people at the bottom to the government at the top and reform the governments.
Can I say something? The one thing I learned really early on, going in and trying to help people, is we cannot be going in trying to push our agenda. It does not work. It is not about us. It is about the people that are there on the ground. And if you don't start with them first and what their will is and what they want to get done, it will not work. So you have to be humbled to be able to go in and work with them. And if we're going to do something, it should really just be a playbook on how it can be done, not us inserting ourselves into their process. If it's not their ideas, looking at the playbook, they will not get buy-in and they will not be invested in this. And you want people to be completely bought in to what they come up with. And it's going to be different culturally everywhere we go, which is why it's so important to get them to come, have the buy-in, have the ideas, but just give them a roadmap. And then you take it from there. Yeah.
So I know in Northeast Syria and the whole region because this group operates in the whole region and we just came alongside what they were already doing. And it's interesting, the model, because, and Rima's the main person behind the whole region, Lebanon, Turkey, Syria, and Iraq, where she raises up women in these different contexts, and then from those women, they choose leaders that they train up, like Nazira, and then they put those leaders into local government. Education, education, education. Yeah.
I just want to add something to what Susan and Charmaine said, and also what you said about the people. It's right, I started 10 years ago to lobby and to advocate, but in a way, the last 7 years, I'm only focusing on the aid of the people on the ground. What can we do politically if there are no people left? And this should be main focus. The problem, and this is what we achieved with Shy Fund since 7 years, we do help the people in their hometowns to start again a life. With Macquarie One, we were able to establish livelihoods, also with the Aurora Prize, the part from Mirza, 100 livelihoods. These are families, they went back from displacement to their hometowns and they started again to rebuild their lives. And it's the same in Syria. Turkey cuts off the water, no water, the people, they will die, the children will have diseases, the pregnant women, they cannot give birth to children because there is no clean water. What did we do? We have now this project with Susan and with the Global Christian Relief. We are distributing daily 80,000 liters of water, clean water. So this is the problem. The people, if we really want to do something it doesn't matter if it's in Africa or if it's in the Middle East, we have to make sure that the people still stay there and not leave the country. And I went to conferences and to donors conferences of these big organizations. They don't care about that. They don't only care about deadline of the report and to have some nice pictures and that's it. And this is the difference we make. You know, like in Syria, we cannot move everywhere very easily because Syria is still the official partner of the International Red Cross and the UN aid is only going to Assad-controlled areas. We don't see anything from that. US aid, they released funding, but we never saw anything of that. And just as Lauren said, there was this other model of the opposition, it failed, and all these funds went to where? And this is one of the main points we have to consider, how we can help the people to stay in the places that they are. Otherwise, it's for nothing.
Just a few words from my side. I would definitely support this idea of establishment of regional, sub-regional centers for promotion of religious freedom, and I would really concentrate on the peace education. And maybe under one philosophy or motto, finding common perspectives on the local level and fighting common challenges on that level, because each region is different, even within a country. And if we go back to the peace education, I would say yes, the high school, because we have this experience because we have not only to work with the schools, we have also to work with the civil society to put some lobbying on the government for making some changes, reforms in the law or the measure or mechanisms inside the country. For example, in Iraq, there is a special entity for fighting extremism, for example. But the entity is just like authority. Therefore, I would again say it is completely the responsibility of the civil society. Civil society can do a lot without government. The region where I am working as household person, since 2017, there is no government. Nevertheless, we could run dialogues, bring people together, and to find some perspective together. I think it's so important to do these centers. Thanks.
One thing I want to point out is it is really important civil society has less barriers to getting things done. I think that's why so many nonprofit organizations have been able to work together and get things done quickly. I've seen it over and over and over and over. So that is why collaboration and cross-pollination is so important, because we can do things that other organizations, governments can't do quickly, because there's less red tape and you just go in and you get done what needs to get done. So.
I think this point that Suzanne's made twice about collaboration and getting things done is, and Lauren has echoed as well, is just imperative. And it also speaks to why the roundtable is the way to go as people oriented and civil society oriented. And here's the potentially contentious point that I'll make, but religious leaders are a lesser included set. You don't want to start with religious leaders. Bishop Warda in the early days wouldn't even help non-Chaldeans. And they need to be in the solution, but they can't be the generation of the solution. I hate to say that, but that's just a fact. It's especially true in the Middle East, but lots of places. The other comment I would make is this, and I have 50-50 on the suggestion, so I may disagree with myself momentarily. But what if our strategy was to work toward hosting not the next one of these things, but soon in the future, one of these things in Northeast Syria? Because it would be a beautiful narrative. The Roundtable in America was self-generated by civil society. What you're doing in Northeast is self-generated. That's a story that anybody in the world can understand. And then we highlight the model. The reason I pause about it is I think if we talk about it too much beforehand, it becomes a target. But it could be something that we sort of do and spring up and hold it for 2 days, and we invite people and tell their story, let them tell their story, and make it just the beautiful thing that it already is. And I think that could be fun, inviting folks from other regions of the world to see it for themselves, have a day-long study tour, meet with them, So it's a tutorial for the rest of the world.
Thank you.
I love it, don't you?
That's all right, we got the next one. We got the next one. Everybody loves to hear it. We love it over here too.
Yeah, just on that, I want to, Suzanne, to your point made me think of this, that it's not about telling people how to organize themselves. When we had this theory of change we call covenantal pluralism. And what's been exciting is to see how, we kind of articulated this. And, it's in a paper at Review of Faith International Affairs, you can read it there. But what's been exciting is to see how people like John Zuma, and Wayne Kuzak, and T.S. Ho, different parts of the world take that and then run with it. in their region and apply it, and it adapts. And different things, different parts become greater emphases, but what we do is just let them do that adaptation. You know, to use a Latin phrase, mutatis mutandis, right, with all the adjustments necessary for the context. And it's like, well, you know, it doesn't look the same. Sometimes they work together, like John Azuma and the TSO, they have an MOU between each other just to share ideas, so different parts, you know, different ends of the crescent of the Muslim majority world. So that's cool. It's like, we're not doing that, they're just doing it, right? And so with democracy, right, just come up a lot here. It's not about, you know, yeah, America's agenda, you know, we're not Americans here, obviously, but the idea is like, it's not America saying everybody needs to be democratic like us. It's like, well, yeah, democracy's good, right? Because it's about consent of the governed, it's about ruled by the people. That's what people just resonate with that. It's not because it's American, it's just because it works, right? People get it, but here's the point. And then the comparison, you know, covenantal pluralism is that, you know, like the Templeton, like, we're not about spreading democracy, right? I mean, I think democracy is cool, right? It's good because it's about freedom. We're all about freedom. But you can have, like, I used to teach philosophy, so Plato was very skeptical of democracy, right? And you think, well, it's in Greece, right? Greece invented democracy. Yeah, they did, but look what they did to Socrates. Now, he was executed by the democracy, right? And he was Plato's kind of hero. And so he was very skeptical of democracy, which he thought has this tendency to ascend into mob rule, tyranny of the majority. That's what he feared. And so what he thought a better model would be a benevolent dictator, the philosopher king, right? Someone who, when you combine wisdom and political power, now, it's never been done perfectly, except for one brief shining moment here and there. You have a philosopher king or queen, emerge. But the point I'm making with that nerdy illusion is that democracy is not going to look the same everywhere. So here you have, in northeastern Syria, it's like a story, it's like replicating the late 18th century in the colonies, where you have, the founders had this idea, let's create a multi-faith, multiracial, multi-ethnic democracy, which had never been done, tried. I mean, Greece wasn't bad. I mean, they were all Greek. There wasn't much diversity there. It's never been tried, and it's never really quite fully succeeded. America's not, it's got a lot of problems. We're finding it's really hard. And what's so cool about Northeast Syria is like, wow, it really, that's even better. That's better. I mean, it's like America wants to be that example, but you gotta go, you have to look at these moments where it's emerging. It's starting, it's coming from, and the contrast is really clear. So, so my main point is just, it's gonna look different everywhere. It's a model, but it's gonna look different in Southeast Asia than the Middle East, than Latin America. So we gotta allow, as a funder, I think you gotta allow people to take the idea and then express it in their context, right? And Charles, got some things that I'll do.
Thanks so much. I need to resist the temptation to turn this into a philosophy tutorial. I think you're absolutely right in terms of the whole relationship between our political structures and the need to encourage, support, resource communities. I guess in the West, both in North America and in Europe, we are going through a bit of a challenge. This may sound a bit politically controversial. But I suspect that what we've been experiencing over the last 20, 30 years is a world where actually, although wholly democratic still, the permanence and the power of officials has actually become prevalent. And that's particularly the case in the UK, when you have significant and rapid political change, either within a party. So we've had 4 prime ministers, 5, so sorry, the expert, 5 prime ministers, huge, rapid political change under the same party structure. And what that has led to is the empowerment, or the greater empowerment of the officials, the unelected officials in the departments. I think that the model that is emerging here, and our friends in North East Syria, the wonderful thing about it is that it is organic. And so, in our context, we have lost probably our greatest advocate, political advocate, of the last few years. She served as the Prime Minister's Special Envoy, Fiona Breeze. Wonderfully, she's here today in the ministerial, but she's here in a private capacity because she's no longer the Prime Minister's Special Envoy, because the Prime Minister is no longer the Prime Minister. And indeed, she lost her elected position as a Member of Parliament in the last election. But there's a way through this model of organic evolution to ensure that Fiona is still involved as part of the process, even though she is not continuing to serve either as an elected representative or as a quasi-government official, as the UK representative on the alliance. So I think, although it's not, from a political philosophy point of view, it's not clean, it doesn't look very structured. Organically, along this model, it's effective. What we're hoping now, and it's not formally being announced, we're hoping that the new Prime Minister will appoint a successor to Fiona, who will come in and take up that role, who can come and join us in these discussions, join the ministerial and support Ambassador Rehagford, Fiona's successor as chair. And we will see how effective the British system is in managing that change and yet hopefully maintaining the priority on the freedom of religion or belief.
I think, and the stories are quite remarkable. And, you know, I think that the type of risks that you all have taken are just, you know, incredible in terms of the capacity of humanity to overcome, you know, such tragedies. It's really an honor to be sitting as well. So I think in terms of thinking about, I know Greg has the idea of sort of the regional ministerials. I think within the ministerial model then, thinking about the different dimensions by which those different ministerials can then coordinate with each other. So thinking about kind of the social, the political, the economic, because I think ultimately what's going to power all these ministerials is going to be money, right? And sort of thinking about, okay, not just donors, but one of the major issues in, especially post-pandemic, like in terms of the world economy, is development, right? And sort of how much poverty has just fueled all the political chaos in the majority world, right? I mean, when you look at any sort of major indicator, just how that has just, you know, really devastated, you know, most of the world economies, but also particularly sort of poor. the amount and the number of poor people. And yesterday we were talking to the representative from the World Evangelical Council. One of the challenges in a place like Pakistan, for instance, is that the Christians that are there are also the lower caste of Pakistani society, right? And so they're the street sweepers and things like that. They don't have access to microloans. They don't have access, even if they get access to education, they're generally not given preference or priorities or even any reservation with regards to jobs. So creating an economic niche for an organization, helping to fund. So I think a lot of this issue of sort of religious freedom in many parts of the world, ultimately with democracy and human rights, you can't be either of them. So if you don't have basic security or you don't have basic food, all of these things are completely irrelevant to people. So being able to tie human rights within an indigenous discourse to economic sort of empowerment, I think is a really important part of it. And so that's why I think that the ministerials are a great idea regionally, but then being able to link up, okay, so someone who is doing empowerment work in, in one of the ministerial hubs in, coordinating out of Dubai, will coordinate out of the office in Singapore, looking at kind of, sort of regional strategies and what are ways that you're able to leverage resources, right? Because in the United States or sort of North America, it's pretty clear, right? You have these resources that are very clearly, defined with regards to foundations, governments. There are certain places where you go, whereas in parts of Asia, and particularly Sub-Saharan Africa, wealth exists, but it's not formalized. And trying to access those networks to form those people, acculturating them into sort of traditions of giving that are not sectarian, that's a whole process as well. So, and I think that's some of the ways that we can also support. So, thinking about kind of how do you fund it, and then how do you support a culture of religious freedom through local philanthropy as well. I think it's an important part of it.
Thank you. Great discussion. Why don't we take a 15-minute coffee break?